I walked into the wrong room. The two alien women wouldn't let me leave. Ethan had never been in this part of the starship before. The corridors were quieter, almost too quiet, and the soft hum of the engines sounded louder here. He had been sent to check a maintenance panel near the control hub, but somehow he had lost track of time and direction. The starship was huge, with levels stacked like layers of a city, and sometimes even the crew got lost if they didn't pay attention. Ethan's steps echoed on the polished floor as he moved cautiously, feeling the tension of being somewhere he probably shouldn't be. The air smelled different here, clean, metallic, with a faint hint of something that reminded him of ozone. He had learned from experience that different parts of a ship often had slightly different atmospheres, and this one felt reserved, almost like the room itself was warning him. Ethan paused for a moment, trying to get his bearings. The map on his wrist pad showed he was near a restricted area, but he wasn't sure how he had wandered this far. His heart beat a little faster as he realized that he might have made a mistake. He turned a corner and saw a pair of doors that seemed more elaborate than anything else he had encountered. They were tall, with glowing symbols etched into the surface. He could feel the hum of power behind them. For a moment, curiosity overcame caution, and he reached out to touch the panel. A soft light lit up, and the doors slid open silently. Ethan stepped through, and the world seemed to change in an instant. The room beyond was vast, with high ceilings that shimmered with colors he could not name. Light reflected off surfaces that seemed almost liquid, rippling with movement even though nothing was moving. In the center, two figures stood. They were humanoid in shape, but their skin glowed faintly, shifting colors as if it were alive. Ethan froze, realizing immediately that he had entered somewhere he wasn't supposed to be. The two aliens turned toward him. One had greenish-blue skin that flickered like sunlight on water. Her eyes were wide, luminous, and intelligent. The other had a golden sheen, almost like liquid metal flowing beneath her skin, and her gaze was sharp, calculating. Ethan swallowed hard, trying to think of what to say, but his mouth felt dry. "You shouldn't be here," the one with greenish-blue skin said, her voice echoing softly in his mind rather than through the air. Ethan blinked. She wasn't speaking aloud. She was projecting words directly into his thoughts. He had encountered this form of communication before in simulations, but never so directly and never so intensely. I'm sorry," Ethan managed, his voice trembling slightly. "I was checking a maintenance panel. I didn't know anyone would be here." The golden-skinned alien tilted her head, studying him. Her expression was unreadable, but there was something almost curious in her gaze. "You should not have entered." "Did you intend to interfere with our work?" "No, I swear I just walked in by mistake," Ethan said, holding his hands up slightly. He knew better than to make sudden movements, but he also felt the need to show he was harmless. The two aliens exchanged a glance. Ethan could feel the subtle shift in the energy of the room, the tension tightening like a thread. They moved closer, their steps almost floating, not quite touching the floor. Ethan's instincts told him that trying to run would be foolish. He had to find a way to show them he was not a threat, and maybe, just maybe, earn their trust. "Why do humans enter without permission?" the greenish-blue one asked, tilting her head as if the concept itself puzzled her. Ethan hesitated. Humans weren't always perfect at following rules, especially on a ship where curiosity often led to discovery. We like to understand things," he said. "We notice things others might not. I didn't mean any harm, I just got lost." The two aliens studied him silently. Ethan could feel the weight of their gaze, the kind that seemed to see more than just appearances. He felt small in that room, but strangely, he didn't feel powerless. He had dealt with complex systems before, with pressures and circuits far more temperamental than this situation. Maybe, he thought, he could use that same clarity here. The greenish-blue alien took a step forward, and Ethan could see the soft glow of her skin brighten slightly. "You are human, you are unexpected." Her words were gentle but carried a weight that made Ethan's chest tighten. "Why should we trust you?" Ethan thought fast. He had to give them a reason that mattered. "Because I can help," he said simply. "If something goes wrong, I can fix it. I know systems, I know the ship. I can prevent accidents before they happen." The golden-skinned one raised her hand, and the air shimmered slightly, forming a thin, transparent barrier between them. Ethan froze. He had read about security protocols, but this was more advanced than anything he had imagined. The barrier wasn't threatening, it was measuring him, testing him. "Demonstrate," the greenish-blue one said, her gaze unwavering. "Show us that you are capable." Ethan looked around. There were panels, tubes, and wires lining the walls, all glowing softly with energy. He took a deep breath. He had worked on critical systems before, but never with an audience like this. Slowly, carefully, he moved toward one of the panels that seemed unstable. A small readout flickered red, signaling a potential overload. His fingers moved over the controls, adjusting the flow, rerouting circuits. The aliens watched him closely. Ethan could feel their attention like a weight, and yet it spurred him to focus even more. After a tense moment, the red light shifted to green. The system stabilized. Ethan stepped back, hands slightly trembling from the intensity. The greenish-blue alien nodded slightly. "You understand systems that are not your own. That is unusual." Ethan swallowed. "I do what I can," he said. "I notice problems before they become disasters. That's my skill." For a moment, the room was silent except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Then the golden-skinned alien spoke. "Perhaps you are not entirely unworthy of being here. But humans are unpredictable. We must observe more." Ethan realized that he was being judged, measured against standards he barely understood. But he also realized something else. They were curious. Not hostile, not aggressive, just curious. That gave him a thread to hold on to, a chance to turn this mistake into an opportunity. "Observation is fine," he said. "I can be useful while you study. Just let me help, don't harm me." The two aliens exchanged another glance, and Ethan could sense a subtle shift. The tension eased just slightly. "You will remain," the greenish-blue one said, "until we decide what role you may play. You will learn, and you may be tested further." Ethan nodded, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. "I understand." As the aliens moved back slightly, their forms rippling in the soft light, Ethan took a moment to study them. Their features were beautiful, elegant, almost fluid, and he realized that this room, this chamber, was more than just a workplace. It was a sanctuary of knowledge, a place where decisions could affect countless lives across the galaxy. He wondered how humans would react if they knew what he was seeing, probably with fear. But fear was not his reaction. Instead, he felt a mix of awe and determination. He had walked into the wrong room, yes, but maybe that mistake had brought him to a place where his species could make a difference. The aliens began to work silently, adjusting panels and speaking in thoughts that Ethan could only partially interpret. He observed, careful not to interfere unless necessary. Every gesture, every shift in color seemed to carry meaning, and he tried to understand. Even if he didn't fully grasp their language or motives, he could see patterns, and patterns meant understanding, and understanding meant he could contribute. Hours passed, though Ethan wasn't certain of the exact time. The room's atmosphere was mesmerizing, with light rippling across the walls and soft sounds that seemed almost musical. Ethan learned small things, like how their systems reacted to certain inputs, how attention could stabilize or destabilize the chamber. And with every observation, he grew more confident that humans were not just observers. They could shape outcomes when they acted wisely. Finally, the greenish-blue alien turned to him. "You have endured observation without panic. You have intervened with skill. Perhaps you are more capable than we anticipated." Ethan's heart lifted slightly. "Thank you," he said. "I want to help, that's all I want." The golden-skinned one inclined her head, a gesture Ethan interpreted as approval. "Then you will remain, and you will learn. But you must understand, curiosity is dangerous in some contexts. Your species must not be reckless." "I understand," Ethan said firmly. He had made mistakes, yes, but he would prove that humans could rise to challenges, even ones far beyond their usual reach. As the light shifted again, reflecting across the walls in a dazzling pattern, Ethan realized that this accident, this wrong turn, might be the most important moment of his life. He was in a room that no human was supposed to enter, watched by beings that could read thoughts and measure intentions. And yet in that pressure he felt alive. He felt capable. He felt human. Ethan spent the next few hours in silence, observing the two aliens, Leora and Taria, as they worked. Every movement they made seemed precise, purposeful, and full of meaning he could barely grasp. The room's walls shifted subtly, colors changing with each gesture they made, reflecting their moods and intentions. Ethan realized that he was not just learning about their technology. He was learning their language, their culture, their way of thinking. Every small detail mattered. He had noticed how Leora's hands moved over the panels with elegance, almost like a dance, and how Taria's gaze seemed to map the entire chamber at once, noticing changes he could not even detect. Ethan had been trained to notice small inconsistencies in machinery, but these aliens noticed patterns he had never imagined. Despite that, he also realized something important. Patterns could be understood, and understanding could give him an edge. "Why do humans fear?" Leora asked, her voice gentle in his mind, but carrying a weight that made him consider the question carefully. "I don't know," Ethan said honestly. "Some fear the unknown, some fear making mistakes, but I think most humans also adapt. We try to find solutions, even when the situation is impossible." Leora seemed to consider this. Ethan noticed the color of her skin shift slightly, brighter in certain areas, darker in others. He remembered reading that the changes in bioluminescence reflected emotion, but he wasn't sure which emotion meant what. He would have to learn quickly. Taria, standing slightly behind, moved toward a panel that had begun to flicker. She pointed at it with a long, delicate finger, and the panel shimmered in response. Ethan leaned forward instinctively. "That system is unstable. It could shut down completely if it overloads." Taria's eyes met his, sharp and piercing. "And what would you do?" Ethan thought for a moment. He didn't want to assume she would let him touch anything, but she hadn't yet prevented him from acting in part one. He stepped closer, careful with every movement. "I would reroute some of the energy flow. It's risky, but it could stabilize the panel until a proper solution is applied." The aliens exchanged a glance, and Ethan could sense a flicker of approval, even amusement. "Show us," Leora said softly. Ethan moved to the panel, his hands steady despite the tension. He adjusted the conduits, rerouted energy flows, and carefully monitored the readings. The flickering slowed, then disappeared. The panel glowed steadily, stable and reliable once more. "You anticipate failure," Taria said, her voice a little softer than before. "Your species may be more useful than we imagined." Ethan felt a mix of relief and pride. He had made a small impression, but he knew better than to assume that trust came easily. The alien's approval was tentative, fragile, and dependent on continued performance. He would need to prove himself again and again. As he stepped back, Leora's gaze softened slightly. "Observation is not enough. Understanding is required. You must learn to predict, not just react." Ethan nodded. "I can do that. I'll watch, I'll learn, I'll adapt." For the next hour, he simply observed. He watched as Leora manipulated energy streams that powered the room, adjusting them with an artistry that was mesmerizing. He noticed that each adjustment caused subtle changes in the room's light, colors shifting and rippling as if the chamber itself was alive. He studied the movements carefully, noticing patterns, trying to understand what each motion achieved. Taria, meanwhile, monitored the panels from a distance, analyzing data streams that Ethan could barely interpret. He realized that humans often relied on intuition and creativity, while these aliens relied on precision and observation. But intuition had its own power. It allowed him to notice things they might not immediately see. A sudden alarm sounded, low and vibrating, echoing through the chamber. Ethan's heart jumped. He had not expected anything to go wrong so soon. The panels flickered, and a soft, red glow spread across the floor. Leora and Taria froze for a moment, then moved in perfect synchrony, their forms glowing brighter as they stabilized the room. Ethan stepped forward instinctively. "The secondary conduit on the left is overloading. It needs diversion." "Do it," Taria said. Ethan reached for the controls, rerouted energy, and carefully balanced the flow. The red glow faded, replaced by a soft green light, signaling stability. He stepped back, breathing a little faster than before, but with a sense of accomplishment. "You anticipate problems," Leora said. "You act decisively. That is unusual for humans." "I've had to," Ethan said. "If I hesitate, things fail. That's how we survive." The aliens studied him silently, and Ethan realized they were evaluating more than just his skill. They were measuring his temperament, his decision-making under pressure, and his ability to remain calm. "Humans have instincts that are unpredictable," Taria said finally. "Yet you have controlled them. That is remarkable." Ethan smiled faintly. "Instincts can be trained. We learn from experience and we adapt quickly. That's why I can do this." For the first time, Ethan felt a real connection forming. Not friendship exactly, but respect. These aliens were powerful, intelligent, and mysterious. They could probably destroy him if they wished. Yet in that tension, a thread of understanding had emerged. He could contribute. He could make a difference. Leora moved closer, her form glowing with a soft, calming light. "You have stabilized our systems," she said. "Yet there is more to learn. Understanding energy is only one part. You must also understand intention." Ethan tilted his head. "Intention?" "Yes," Leora said. "The chamber responds to thought and emotion. Every action has consequence, even the smallest one. You cannot simply act. You must anticipate how the system interprets your intention." Ethan nodded slowly. This was different from anything he had ever learned. Machines obeyed commands, systems obeyed logic. But this room, this chamber, reacted not only to action but to purpose. He realized that to succeed here, he would have to master not just technique but mindset. "Show me," Taria said, moving to a panel on the opposite wall. "Predict what will happen if you adjust this conduit." Ethan examined the conduit carefully. He could see the flow of energy, subtle shifts that indicated potential instability. He closed his eyes for a moment, visualizing the adjustments and the effects they would have. Then, carefully, he moved the controls. The conduit pulsed once, then stabilized. The room shimmered, light rippling across the walls, brighter and more harmonious than before. The aliens exchanged a glance, and Ethan could sense a flicker of approval. "You anticipate the chamber's response to your intention," Leora said. "That is unusual for your species. You may indeed be capable of more than we assumed." Ethan allowed himself a small smile. He had proven in a small way that humans could rise to challenges beyond their understanding. That knowledge gave him confidence, but he also knew that trust was fragile. He would need to continue learning, observing, and acting wisely. Hours passed, but time seemed to move differently in the chamber. Ethan lost track of minutes, then hours, as he worked alongside Leora and Taria. He noticed small details, the way the room adjusted to their presence, the subtle signals they exchanged, the patterns in the panels. Every observation added to his understanding, and he began to see connections he hadn't before. At one point, a subtle vibration ran through the floor, and Ethan instinctively looked up. Leora's eyes met his, glowing softly. "A disturbance approaches," she said. "What kind of disturbance?" Ethan asked. "We do not know yet," Taria said, "but it is unusual. You will observe closely." Ethan felt a thrill of anticipation. Danger was coming, but he did not feel fear. He felt readiness. Humans had faced impossible odds before and had survived. This was another challenge, another opportunity to prove that his species could rise to the occasion. The light in the chamber shifted again, the walls reflecting soft patterns of color. Ethan felt a sense of calm focus, as if the room itself encouraged him to think clearly. He realized that despite the alien technology, the key to success here was observation, reasoning, and human ingenuity. Leora spoke again, her voice soft but firm. "You are learning quickly. You see more than you realize. That is the human advantage." Ethan nodded. "I will do my best. I want to help, not hinder." The aliens seemed to accept this, at least for now. They moved with precision, continuing their work while Ethan watched, analyzed, and occasionally intervened. Every small success strengthened his confidence and their cautious trust. By the time Ethan allowed himself to take a breath, he realized he had been in the chamber for what felt like an eternity. He was exhausted, mentally and physically, but he also felt a profound sense of purpose. He had walked into the wrong room, yes, but that mistake had brought him to a place where humans could contribute in ways no one had imagined. And for the first time, Ethan understood something important. Sometimes the wrong turn was the right one, if one had the courage, skill, and determination to make the most of it. Ethan had learned a lot about the chamber, the systems, and the two aliens, Leora and Taria. But he also realized that observation and fixing minor problems were not enough. The aliens had hinted at more tests, more challenges, and he knew he needed to prove something greater than skill with technology. They wanted to see whether humans could think, adapt, and predict, qualities that were rare even among the most intelligent species. He watched as Leora moved along the panels, her hands flowing in elegant arcs, adjusting energy streams with precision. The light in the room pulsed with her movements, reflecting the subtle changes in the system. Ethan noticed patterns he had not seen before, sequences that repeated minor shifts that predicted larger reactions. He realized that this was more than a test of skill, it was a test of understanding. Taria's gaze moved over him, sharp and assessing. She didn't speak aloud, but Ethan felt the weight of her thoughts in his mind. She was challenging him silently, pushing him to think ahead, to predict outcomes before they happened. He had faced challenges before, in simulations and in emergency repairs on the ship, but this was different. Here, the consequences were unknown and the stakes were far higher. "Predict what will happen if the energy flow is altered," Tyria said, her voice calm but commanding in his mind. Ethan examined the conduits, visualizing the possible outcomes. He knew that a single miscalculation could destabilize the system or create a feedback loop that might lock down the entire chamber. He focused, clearing his mind of fear, and let his reasoning guide him. He suggested a careful adjustment, explaining his reasoning step by step in words the aliens could understand. Leora's glowing skin shifted in response, brighter along her arms and chest. "You predict with logic, but also with intuition. That is unusual for your kind." Ethan nodded. "We rely on both. Logic tells us what is likely, intuition helps us notice what might be overlooked." Tyria moved closer to the panel, examining his adjustments. "Your prediction is correct," she said. "The system remains stable." "You have foresight, not just reaction." Ethan felt a wave of relief. It was a small victory, but it mattered. He had earned something more than trust in skill. He had earned recognition of his mind. As the hours passed, the tests grew more complex. The aliens introduced subtle disturbances in the energy flow, forcing Ethan to think quickly and adapt. Each time he succeeded, sometimes through careful analysis, other times through quick, intuitive leaps. Leora and Taria watched silently, but Ethan could feel their approval growing. "You adapt quickly," Leora said. "Your species surprises us. You find solutions where others might fail." "I've had to," Ethan said. "Human survival depends on noticing problems and solving them before they become disasters." The aliens exchanged a glance, and Ethan sensed a subtle shift in the chamber's energy. The room seemed to respond to their conversation, light and color pulsing in harmony with their emotions. He realized that this place was almost alive, not just a room, but a system that reacted to intention, emotion, and thought. Suddenly, a new challenge appeared. A series of panels along one wall began to flicker erratically, lights pulsing in unpredictable patterns. Ethan stepped forward, analyzing the situation. "The main conduit is overloaded. If it isn't stabilized, it could trigger a cascade failure." Taria's eyes narrowed. "You will handle this without assistance." Ethan took a deep breath. He had handled critical repairs before, but this was different. The system was more complex, more sensitive, and his every move would be observed. He studied the panels carefully, noting the pattern of flickers, the flow of energy, the subtle shifts in light. Then he acted, rerouting energy, adjusting conduits, and balancing flow with careful precision. The room pulsed as the system stabilized, light and color flowing smoothly once more. Ethan stepped back, feeling his pulse racing, but also a deep sense of satisfaction. He had succeeded again. Leora's voice was soft but carried weight. "You anticipate consequences. You act with care and precision. That is rare among your kind." Ethan smiled faintly. "We adapt, we learn, and sometimes we take risks that others might avoid." The aliens remained silent for a moment, then Leora spoke again. "You are more capable than we imagined. Yet this is only the beginning. True understanding requires more than reaction and foresight. It requires creativity." Ethan tilted his head. "Creativity?" "Yes," Leora said. "You must solve problems in ways that the system does not expect. You must show innovation." The challenge was clear. Ethan understood that the aliens wanted to see if humans could think beyond rules, beyond logic, beyond expected patterns. He had solved technical problems before, but creativity was different. It required insight, imagination, and courage. A soft vibration ran through the chamber, and a small section of the floor shimmered. Ethan realized it was another test, a puzzle embedded in the system itself. Lights pulsed in complex patterns, conduits shifted in unpredictable ways, and panels responded differently than before. He studied the sequence carefully. Observation alone would not suffice. He needed to experiment, to try different adjustments, to anticipate outcomes creatively. His mind raced as he considered options, possibilities, and potential consequences. Slowly, carefully, he began to make adjustments, testing the system's response. Some changes failed, but he learned quickly from each attempt. His human intuition guided him, helping him notice patterns the aliens might not anticipate. He combined logic with imagination, experimenting with novel approaches that kept the system stable while solving the puzzle. Leora and Taria observed silently, but Ethan could sense their growing approval. His approach was unconventional, unpredictable, yet effective. He had passed the test of creativity. "You innovate," Taria said. "You think beyond the obvious. That is rare." Ethan nodded. "We have to. Sometimes rules are not enough. Sometimes survival depends on seeing new possibilities." The chamber pulsed with light and color, reflecting the successful resolution of the challenge. Ethan felt a surge of pride. He had proven that humans were not just reactive, not just logical, but capable of innovation and ingenuity that even advanced aliens could respect. For the next few hours, Ethan continued to work alongside the aliens, facing challenges that required skill, intuition, and creativity. Each success strengthened the fragile trust between him and the two beings. He noticed that they were beginning to include him in subtle decisions, testing his judgment and considering his perspective. "You learn quickly," Leora said finally, "and you apply knowledge in ways unexpected. That is remarkable for a human." "I try my best," Ethan said. "I want to help, not just observe." Taria's gaze softened slightly. "You have proven more than skill. You have shown thoughtfulness, adaptability, and courage. That is the human advantage." Ethan realized that he had reached a turning point. He was no longer just a human in a room with aliens. He was a participant, a contributor, someone whose perspective mattered. The chamber, the systems, and the aliens themselves were beginning to respond to him in new ways. A soft alert vibrated through the room, drawing their attention. Ethan studied the panels and realized that a minor anomaly had appeared in the energy flow. It was not dangerous yet, but it required careful attention. He stepped forward, applying what he had learned about observation, prediction, and creativity. He adjusted conduits, balanced energy flows, and stabilized the anomaly before it became a problem. "You anticipate challenges before they arrive," Leora said. "You act with skill, foresight, and creativity. That is unusual for your kind." Ethan smiled faintly. "We have to be ready. We never know what will happen next." The aliens remained silent for a moment, then Taria spoke. "You are learning quickly. You are more capable than we imagined. Perhaps humans are not as limited as we believed." Ethan felt a surge of pride. His species, often underestimated, was capable of more than even advanced beings sometimes realized. He had walked into the wrong room, yes, but through observation, skill, and creativity, he had begun to earn respect. As the chamber pulsed with light and color, Ethan realized that the lessons he had learned here were about more than technology. They were about perspective, problem-solving, and the human spirit. Humans had survived, adapted, and thrived in impossible situations before. And here, in this alien chamber, he was proving that those qualities could matter across the galaxy. For the first time, he felt a sense of belonging, not as a human among aliens, but as a contributor, someone whose presence made a difference. The aliens had challenged him, tested him, and now he was meeting that challenge head-on. And Ethan knew that the real test was not yet over. The chamber held more mysteries, the aliens more challenges, and the galaxy itself would demand ingenuity, courage, and human determination. But for now, he had taken a significant step. He had moved from observer to participant, from intruder to ally in a delicate, unspoken partnership. The wrong room had become the place where he could prove that humans, with curiosity, skill, and creativity, could rise to challenges no one expected. Ethan straightened, ready for whatever came next. He was learning, adapting, and thinking ahead. He had survived the first trials and demonstrated the human advantage. And he knew that the next challenge would be even greater, requiring everything he had learned and more. Ethan had spent what felt like endless hours in the chamber, learning, observing, and adapting. The tests of skill, prediction, and creativity had pushed him further than he had ever imagined. But now a subtle tension filled the air, one that even the gentle pulsing of the chamber could not hide. Leora and Taria moved with purpose, their glowing forms shifting faster, sharper, as if they sensed a danger Ethan could not yet see. "Something is coming," Leora said softly, her thoughts clear in Ethan's mind. "We feel it in the energy. A disturbance approaches unlike anything we have encountered here before." Ethan's pulse quickened. "What kind of disturbance?" he asked. "We do not know yet," Taria said. It is unusual, unpredictable. It may affect the chamber, the ship, or both. You must observe carefully. Ethan nodded, bracing himself. He had dealt with unexpected situations before, but this was different. The disturbance was not a simple technical failure. It was something that could challenge everything in the room. He could feel the subtle vibrations along the floor, the flicker of lights along the walls. The chamber was reacting, responding to an unknown presence, and it required careful attention. He studied the panels and conduits, noticing changes that had never appeared before. Energy flows shifted unpredictably, lights pulsed erratically, and a low hum resonated through the room. Ethan realized that this disturbance would not simply be solved by following instructions or repeating familiar patterns. He would need to combine observation, intuition, and creativity like never before. Leora moved closer to a control panel, her glowing fingers adjusting minor flows. Ethan noticed that the room's reaction depended not only on their movements, but also on their thoughts. The chamber was almost alive, responding to intention, emotion, and focus. He had learned this over time, and now it would be crucial. Focus on predicting the patterns, Leora said. Observe how the chamber responds to small adjustments. The disturbance will magnify errors. One wrong move could trigger instability across multiple systems. Ethan took a deep breath, centering himself. He had faced pressure before, but this was higher than anything he had ever experienced. He began with careful observations, noting the subtle changes in light, energy, and color. Each flicker, each pulse held a clue. He mapped the patterns in his mind, anticipating the next shift before it happened. Taria stepped forward, pointing to a panel that pulsed erratically. You must stabilize this flow first, then anticipate the secondary reaction across the chamber. Ethan's hands moved carefully, rerouting energy, balancing conduits, and stabilizing the first system. The panel's erratic flicker slowed to a steady rhythm, but the disturbance had not disappeared. The room still pulsed with subtle vibrations, reacting to the invisible force moving through the chamber. You anticipate well, Leora said, but the disturbance is intelligent. It is not random, it adapts. Ethan's mind raced. An intelligent disturbance meant he could not simply react. He needed to predict, to anticipate the adaptive changes. He examined the flows, tracing the energy streams with his eyes, imagining how the system would respond to different adjustments. Then he acted, rerouting conduits, applying small corrections, and watching the chamber's response closely. For a moment the lights surged, colors shifting wildly. Ethan felt the pressure building, but he stayed focused. He had learned to remain calm under stress, to rely on observation and intuition. He adjusted the energy flows again, combining careful logic with creative thinking. Slowly the chamber stabilized. The aliens watched him closely. You are using your species' advantage, Taria said. You anticipate, adapt, and act with creativity. That is unusual. Ethan nodded, though he barely had time to think about praise. The disturbance was still present, moving unpredictably, and he knew this was only the beginning. He needed to do more than stabilize the systems. He needed to understand the disturbance itself. He stepped closer to a section of the chamber that seemed most affected. Panels flickered in chaotic patterns, energy streams twisted, and the room's color shifted rapidly. Ethan studied the disturbance, trying to perceive its logic, its rhythm. It was almost like observing a storm, unpredictable yet patterned. Think like it, Leora said, her voice calm but urgent. Predict how it will move, how it will react, then act before it does. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, visualizing the flows, imagining the disturbance as a shape moving through the chamber. He could sense subtle patterns emerging, rhythms that suggested where it would appear next, which conduits it would affect, which panels might fail. He opened his eyes and moved quickly, adjusting energy flows, diverting power, and reinforcing conduits. The chamber pulsed with energy as he worked, responding to his interventions. The disturbance reacted, shifting in response, but Ethan anticipated the reaction and countered it with subtle, precise adjustments. Minutes passed like hours. Ethan moved with focus, observation, and creativity, staying one step ahead of the intelligent anomaly. Leora and Taria watched silently, their glowing forms pulsating with what Ethan interpreted as approval. Finally, after a tense sequence of adjustments, the chamber stabilized. The disturbance dissipated, leaving the room calm and flowing with smooth energy once more. Ethan took a deep breath, relief flooding through him. "You have done well," Leora said, her voice softer now. "You did more than stabilize the chamber. You neutralized an unknown threat with intelligence and creativity." Taria nodded. "Your species' advantage is clear. Humans anticipate, adapt, and innovate. That is rare, even among advanced civilizations." Ethan allowed himself a small smile. He had walked into the wrong room by mistake, yet here he was, facing an intelligent disturbance that could have caused disaster, and he had overcome it. He realized that humans could rise to challenges no one expected. "Thank you," he said. "I just did what I could." "I wanted to help." "You did more than help," Leora said. "You proved that humans are capable of far more than we imagined. Your species can be trusted in situations that require adaptability and courage." Ethan felt a surge of pride. He had earned the aliens' recognition, and he had done it without weapons, without force, simply through observation, creativity, and calm reasoning. It was a lesson he had learned in his own world, one he now realized had value across the galaxy. The chamber pulsed softly, reflecting their approval. Ethan looked around, noticing subtle changes he hadn't seen before. Conduits flowing more smoothly, panels glowing steadily, and the room's colors shifting in harmonious patterns. It was as if the chamber itself recognized his presence and approved of his actions. "You must understand," Taria said, "that disturbances like this are rare, but they test more than skill, they test understanding, patience, and ingenuity. You have shown all three." Ethan nodded. "I understand. I'll continue to learn, to observe, and to act wisely." Leora stepped closer, her glow brightening. "You have done more than survive the challenge. You have earned the beginning of trust. But the galaxy is vast, and there will be more challenges, ones that require your species' unique qualities." Ethan felt a sense of purpose settle over him. He realized that the chamber, the aliens, and the disturbance were part of a larger lesson. Humans, often underestimated, could make a difference when they applied observation, ingenuity, and creativity. That was the human advantage, and here, in this alien chamber, it had been proven. Hours passed as Ethan continued to assist Leora and Taria, observing their methods, learning their logic, and applying his own skills in ways that complemented theirs. Each minor adjustment, each careful intervention strengthened their trust in him. He realized that his species' greatest strength was not brute force or superior technology, but the ability to think, adapt, and innovate in unpredictable situations. Finally, Leora spoke again. "The chamber is stable. The disturbance has passed." "You have proven yourself beyond expectation," Taria added. "Your presence has changed our perception. Humans are capable of more than we believed. You have shown ingenuity, calm reasoning, and creativity. That is the human advantage." Ethan felt a wave of satisfaction. He had walked into the wrong room, yes, but that mistake had brought him to a place where his species could shine. He had faced intelligent, unpredictable challenges, and he had met them successfully. "You trust me now?" he asked quietly. Leora's glow softened. "We do not fully understand your species yet, but we recognize your abilities. That is enough for now. Trust must be earned continuously, and you have begun to earn it." Ethan nodded. He understood. Trust was not given lightly, especially among beings as advanced as Leora and Taria. But he had taken the first step, and that was enough for now. As he stepped back, he felt a sense of calm confidence. He had faced a challenge that could have overwhelmed anyone, and he had succeeded. He had used human ingenuity, observation, and creativity to turn a potential disaster into a triumph. The chamber pulsed softly, light and color flowing in harmony. Ethan realized that he had not only survived the test, but he had also proven something important. Humans could rise to challenges no one expected, not with force, but with intelligence, courage, and creativity. And as he watched the two aliens work, he understood that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and the challenges would only grow greater. But he was ready. He had learned, adapted, and proved the human advantage. And he knew that the next challenge would test him even more, requiring everything he had learned, and more. For the first time, Ethan felt truly part of something greater. Not just as a human among aliens, but as a mind capable of contributing, shaping outcomes, and rising to challenges beyond expectation. The wrong room had become the place where he had discovered his potential, and humanity's potential, in ways he could never have imagined. Ethan felt a quiet determination settle over him as he watched the chamber hum with steady energy. The disturbances had passed, and the systems were stable. But he knew this calm was temporary. Leora and Taria were not finished testing him. There was more to learn, more to observe, and he sensed one final challenge that would determine whether he had truly earned their trust. "You have performed well," Leora said, her glowing form shifting with subtle waves of light. "You understand prediction, adaptation, and creativity, but there is one final test." Ethan's heart beat faster, but he forced himself to remain calm. "What is the test?" he asked. Taria's eyes gleamed, almost like molten gold in the soft light. "You must work with us to neutralize a threat that is not only mechanical but intelligent. It affects the ship and the chamber. Failure is not an option." Ethan nodded. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes." The chamber pulsed, and suddenly, panels along one wall began flickering erratically. Energy flows twisted and surged unpredictably. It was as if the room itself were alive, reacting to an unseen force. Ethan realized immediately that this was the disturbance they had spoken of, a new intelligent anomaly that required careful thought and action. Leora stepped forward. "You must observe and predict. The disturbance reacts to action, thought, and intention." One wrong step could escalate it. Ethan took a deep breath. He had faced similar challenges before, but this was different. The stakes were higher, the systems more complex, and the anomaly more intelligent. But he had learned, adapted, and survived before. Now it was time to put everything he had learned into action. He studied the panels and conduits, noting the energy flows, the patterns of flickering lights, and the subtle vibrations along the floor. The disturbance moved like a storm through the chamber, unpredictable yet patterned. Ethan's mind raced, mapping the anomaly, predicting its movements, and considering the effects of every possible adjustment. "You must act decisively," Taria said. "Observation alone is not enough." Ethan nodded. He began adjusting conduits, rerouting energy flows, and applying small corrections. The anomaly responded, shifting unpredictably, testing his intuition and creativity. He realized that conventional approaches would not succeed. He had to think differently, combining logic with imagination and anticipation. The chamber pulsed wildly, lights flashing, colors shifting, and energy streams twisting in complex patterns. Ethan's mind worked quickly, analyzing, predicting, and experimenting. He made small adjustments, testing responses and learning from each reaction. Slowly, the room began to stabilize, but the anomaly was not gone. "It adapts," Leora said. "You must anticipate its next moves, not just respond." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, visualizing the anomaly as a shape moving through the chamber. He traced its potential paths, predicting which conduits and panels it would affect next. Then he acted, adjusting energy flows preemptively, reinforcing critical systems, and guiding the anomaly's movement into areas where it could be neutralized safely. The chamber pulsed with intense light, reflecting the high energy of the confrontation. Ethan's heart raced, but he remained focused. He had learned to stay calm under pressure, to combine observation, intuition, and creativity. Now he applied all of these skills at once. Minutes passed like hours as he moved through the sequence, carefully adjusting, predicting, and balancing the system. The anomaly reacted, but Ethan anticipated its moves, countering with precision and ingenuity. He realized that his advantage was human adaptability, an ability to think beyond rules, to innovate, and to act in ways the aliens might not anticipate. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the chamber stabilized completely. The lights settled into smooth, harmonious patterns, energy flows ran steadily, and the disturbance was gone. Ethan stepped back, breathing heavily, but a deep sense of accomplishment filled him. He had succeeded. "You have done it," Leora said, her glow softening in approval. "You have neutralized the anomaly using observation, prediction, and creativity. That is rare, even among advanced beings." Taria added, "Your species' advantage is clear. Humans anticipate, adapt, and innovate. That is why you succeed where others might fail." Ethan smiled, feeling a surge of pride. He had walked into the wrong room by mistake, yet he had faced intelligent, unpredictable challenges, and he had overcome them. He realized that humans, often underestimated, could rise to challenges far beyond expectation. "You trust me now?" he asked quietly, almost hoping for an answer. Leora's glowing form shifted, brighter along her arms and chest. "We trust your abilities. Your species has shown ingenuity, calm reasoning, and creativity. That is enough for now." Trust must continue to be earned, but you have taken a significant step. Ethan nodded, understanding that trust was not given lightly. He had earned recognition, but it was only the beginning of a partnership that could extend far beyond the chamber. As the chamber settled into calm, harmonious patterns, Ethan observed Leora and Taria. Their glowing forms radiated intelligence, elegance, and subtle emotion. He realized that their culture, their logic, and their understanding of systems were advanced, yet they had recognized his unique value, not brute strength or technology, but human ingenuity and adaptability. "You have done more than survive," Taria said. "You have demonstrated the qualities that make your species remarkable. You have proven the human advantage." Ethan felt a quiet pride. He had walked into the wrong room, made mistakes, and faced challenges that seemed impossible, but he had risen to meet them. Humans, he realized, had a unique ability to adapt, to think creatively, and to solve problems in ways no one expected. That was his species' greatest strength. The chamber pulsed softly, reflecting the calm after the storm. Ethan allowed himself a moment to breathe, to absorb the magnitude of what he had achieved. He had earned the aliens' respect, proven the value of human ingenuity, and survived challenges that tested him in every way. "You will remain with us for now," Leora said. "There is much to learn, and we wish to observe your species further, but you have proven yourself beyond expectation." Ethan felt a sense of purpose settle over him. He realized that his accidental entry into the chamber had changed everything, not just for him, but potentially for humanity. He had shown that humans could rise to challenges, think creatively, and act decisively in situations that no one had anticipated. "I will do my best," he said firmly. "I want to learn and help in any way I can." The aliens observed him for a moment, then Leora spoke. "Your willingness to learn and contribute is part of what makes your species remarkable. Adaptability, observation, creativity, and courage. These are qualities that few species demonstrate under pressure. You embody them." Ethan felt a surge of pride. He had started as an intruder, someone who accidentally walked into the wrong room, but now he was more than that. He was a contributor, a problem solver, someone whose presence mattered. The aliens recognized it, and he felt the weight and value of that recognition. As he moved through the chamber, Ethan noticed the subtle ways the aliens adjusted their systems to include him. They consulted his observations, tested his predictions, and allowed him to contribute to decision-making. He realized that this was more than trust, it was respect, a rare and powerful acknowledgement of human capability. Hours passed, but time felt different in the chamber. Ethan had learned not only about systems and patterns, but also about the unique strengths of his species. Humans were often underestimated, but they thrived under challenge, adapted to the unknown, and innovated in ways others could not predict. That had been proven today. Finally, the chamber settled into a rhythm of calm and smooth energy. Ethan took a moment to reflect. He had walked into the wrong room, made mistakes, faced intelligent challenges, and succeeded. He had proven human ingenuity, adaptability, and creativity. He had earned recognition, respect, and a place in the aliens' observation. "You have changed our perception," Leora said. "Humans are capable of far more than we believed. You have shown intelligence, courage, and ingenuity. That is the human advantage." Ethan nodded quietly. "I only did what I could. I hope it helps." "It has helped greatly," Taria said. "Your species has potential we will continue to study. You have proven the value of observation, adaptability, and creativity. That is rare, even among advanced civilizations." Ethan felt a quiet pride. He had entered a room by mistake, yet that mistake had allowed him to demonstrate what humans could do. He had faced challenges, adapted, and innovated. He had earned recognition from beings far beyond his own world. As he prepared to leave the chamber, Leora spoke one last time. "Remember this, human. Your species' strength lies not in force or technology alone, but in your ability to observe, adapt, and create solutions in the face of the unknown. That is your advantage." "That is why you succeeded," Ethan nodded. "I understand. Thank you for letting me prove it." The chamber pulsed softly, the light shifting in calm, harmonious patterns. Ethan stepped forward, leaving the room that had been a test, a challenge, and a lesson. He realized that his accidental entry had changed not only his life, but also the way these aliens perceived humanity. As he walked through the corridors of the starship, Ethan felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. He had proven the human advantage, faced challenges beyond expectation, and earned the respect of beings far more advanced than himself. And he knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and mysteries, and humans had shown that they were capable of rising to meet them. Ethan smiled to himself. He had walked into the wrong room, and in doing so, he had discovered the potential of his species and the power of human ingenuity.